I'm Paige Hopkins. We have some sad breaking news coming to us tonight as being reported by the Associated Press. Singer Whitney Houston is dead. Again, this is according to the Associated Press. Whitney Houston was 48 years old, a reigning pop star. We are waiting to find out the cause of her death. She, of course, was at her peak in the 80s and 90s. She had a very famous stormy marriage to another singer, Bobby Brown, that produced a daughter that you see right there. We're trying to find out again the cause of death. She has had a remarkable career. She was actually discovered at 19 by Clive Davis of Arista Records. She also comes from a storied musical family. Her mother is the gospel singer Cissy Houston, and of course her aunt, the famous pop singer Dionne Warwick. Again, we are right now getting word, breaking news coming to us out of the Associated Press tonight. Very sad news for the entertainment industry. Of course, on this weekend of the Grammys, we're getting word that Whitney Houston, age 48 years old, has died. Again, we're trying to find out the cause of death. And you may be aware that she's had a very long battle with drugs and alcohol that was very public. We're looking right now at footage of her actually going to court. She faced many different charges throughout her career, stood by her husband, Bobby Brown, who also had a very public battle with drugs and alcohol. That's actually her ex-husband. There we're looking at video of them when they were actually in Israel during their marriage. They were a very public marriage. They even had a reality show at one point chronicling their ups and downs. She reemerged with a new album a couple years ago. She divorced Bobby Brown. She was making a comeback, but many critics said that her voice seemed different, and perhaps that may have been because of years of drug use. It's not clear. Very sad news, though. She was beautiful singer. On the phone right now, we have Courtney Hazlett. Excuse me. We have Courtney Hazlett, entertainment reporter, on the phone. Courtney, what can you tell us about Whitney Houston? Are you getting confirmation of her death?
Well, you know, the AP has confirmation via one of her publicists. She does have a rather large management team. We haven't heard from everybody absolutely yet. I'm just learning about this a lot at the same time as we all are. This comes as a huge shock, obviously. Whitney had her ups and downs, like you just mentioned a few moments ago, but nobody saw this coming. I can tell you for sure that her management team was in talks for her to do more performances this year. So it wasn't like she was crawling away from the spotlight in any way. The early stages of her comeback were still in the works. She was supposed to do live performances later on in this calendar year. And definitely, this is not something that anybody anticipated. And
as recent as a few days ago, wasn't it also being floated that she might be one of the judges on American Idol, that was a possibility for her?
You know, all these sort of big, splashy roles were bandied about as comeback roles for Whitney Houston. She's really beloved by her fans. It was one of those instances where you really cringed every time you heard a bad story about her. This is the ugly side of celebrity here. You hear some stories about celebrities kind of falling by the wayside, and people say, yeah, they had that coming. But with Whitney Houston, she had such an amazing voice, an amazing presence, and people really cherished what she was able to offer up to the world for so long. Nobody liked seeing her stumble as she did in recent years, so people really wanted her to come back. And seeing her as a judge on one of these shows really would have been inspirational to a lot of people, especially young artists who really look up to her.
Courtney, what can you tell us about her drug use and her alcohol use? I mean, her drug use was very public. It was public in the reality show that she had, chronicling her marriage to Bobby Brown. Anyone watching that could have seen that these were two people who were seemingly using some sort of substance. And then she apparently was cleaned up. She came out with that new album a couple years ago. And then what did you hear about her use in the recent last year, 2 years?
You know, in recent years, anytime she would have any sort of difficulty, people would first say, okay, she's doing drugs again, or she's abusing alcohol again, or something along those lines. And a lot of times representation would say it's exhaustion or something along those lines, the exhaustion line that we hear so often with celebrities, whether it's true or not, or just sort of a cover-up for what really might be going on. But, you know, this is a woman who had not battled all her demons, and we've heard from addiction experts every time a really sad story along the lines of this. Let's be clear, we don't know what cause of death was. At this point. But,
no, we don't.
You know, anytime you hear about these stories, you know, addiction is something these people deal with lifelong. And with Whitney Houston, her addictions were not something that were 100% behind her, according to anybody who knew her well.
And also according to people who knew her well. She grew up in this family of gospel singers out of Newark, New Jersey, and she really had a very sheltered upbringing, a very strict, sheltered upbringing. It really wasn't until she became quite famous and dating famous people, and of course marrying Bobby Brown, that it was even obvious she had any sort of drug issue. Isn't that true?
And this isn't something that's unique to Whitney Houston, of course. I mean, Hollywood, show business, if you will, in general, doesn't even just have to be the corner of Hollywood per se, but whatever aspect of show business you're ensconced in, this sort of lifestyle is something that tends to rear its head quite often, sadly enough. And Whitney certainly wasn't immune.
No, she was not. And we also should mention they have a daughter, Bobby Christina.
Correct.
Do you know how old she is?
Off the top of my head, I don't. I believe she's
teenager.
Yeah, a teenager or nearing her 20s at most. But they do share a young daughter, and she too has had to deal with the spotlight. We love to watch reality